You know, the thing I didn't expect about having sheep clear the land is that, at least at this time of year in our zone, which is 6B, the things that they stripped have not grown back, which is good news for us because we wanted this whole driveway area that goes up to be cleared. And I'm sure it's going to grow back again, especially if it starts raining more consistently. But that's kind of neat. It feels like it does explode when you mow or weed whack. It seems like that seems to be like maybe a pruning process where it all just grows abundantly and bushier than it was before. That's an interesting thing I'm just now observing. One thing I don't think that I have addressed is how many acres do we have? It looks like we are completely isolated from all civilization, but actually we're pretty close to an old country dirt road that goes along the front of our property. And so oftentimes in these videos, you will hear cars passing by. Do you hear the car passing by? There are certain parts of the property you can hear it because sound travels a little better. Picture a big uppercase L. We first bought 5 acres in the shape of a long rectangle. Then we bought the back 2 acres because we realized that we didn't have much of a buffer between where we wanted to build a house originally and then the guy who owned the land behind us. Now, a creek runs down the entire length of our property. We had the opportunity to buy 2 acres that jutted out this way. So the creek is separating all the way up and down our property that we originally got, which is now about 7.5 acres. And now this 2-acre property here is separated, like I said, by that creek. In order to get onto this land, there is a logging road that goes from the road onto the 2 acres that we live on right now with our camper and up and through our existing property. So buying this 2-acre plot meant we could access all the rest of our land without having to cut into the trees and put a culvert and an entire driveway. So when this 2 acres became available, we bought it and moved onto it immediately. It already had a pad put on there with gravel from the people who lived here before. They lived in one of those tiny Dirksen sheds. And so they had that put there. They didn't actually own the property, but the property owner was allowing them to stay. They had some kind of deal worked out. So they lived in a shed on the spot. We now have our camper. So we were able to take the 5 acres plus the 2.5 we bought behind it, plus now the extra 2, and that makes about 9, it's actually 9.7 acres. Let's just call it 10. So we have a total of 10 acres. The original plan was to take that back 5-acre, 2-acre area kind of up to the almost top of our land and to build a house up there. In order to access it though, you have to go up an actually pretty steep driveway. So there are parts of it that you're walking up and you have that kind of like, whoa, that kind of a steep driveway. It's tough, but plans have changed. So what we were thinking, because this is so steep to drive up, what we were thinking is build a small house down on the spot we are with our camper, and then one day build a bigger house, not a huge house, but a bigger house to be more comfortable up at the top. And so that's where we've been moving toward. I'm now thinking that that small house that we build could be adequate for us. I don't really know. I'm not sure exactly how big it's going to be. I'm not sure if one day we're going to have more kids. I'm just not really certain. So we're living in the camper, deciding, okay, we're going to have this smaller house down here. We'll build the bigger house up here. And then one day we'll move into the bigger house. Then when we're old and crotchety, we'll move back to the smaller house to make it easier to get to and from, so that we don't have this huge hill that we have to climb up. We want to age gracefully in place, and being 85 years old, living up a very steep hill does not sound like something I want to do. So the current plan, because this is where we are right now with our camper, the current plan is build a small house, then far, far, far in the future, most likely build a house up at the top. Now, when we get old and crotchety and move down to that house again, back down to the house on the bottom, we can give our kids the inheritance of this land. So maybe as newlyweds, they want to move up into that house before they move on to a different piece of property. You know, I'm not sure what it's going to be, but it gives us more options for our family. Now, as you know, we want to build a bathhouse that has now transitioned into more of like a tiny house, which is going to be like a tiny house guest house. So now we're still having that house up here on the back burner, but now we're going to do a shed, make that a very temporary little area to have showers in, then build the bathhouse, which is gonna be more of like a little tiny house for storage, much nicer bathroom. And then it could turn into a guest quarters for when our family visits. Then it will be the small house down where our camper is. So we'll have, the shed doesn't count as any kind of housing, but we'll have a shed built, a greenhouse built, the bathhouse built, which we'll move into, sell the camper, use that money from the camper sale to start building the small house that we live in until one day we maybe build a big house up at the top. Wow, that sounds like a lot. So currently what we're doing with all of our things right now, the sheep, the dogs, cats, chickens, bunnies, the garden, the orchard, all of that stuff right now is just on the 2-acre part of the L, uppercase L, that is our land. But you don't need a ton of land in order to take care of all of these things. It's nice to have a lot of pasture land. It would have been way more convenient for us to have sheep with a lot of pasture land, but that's just not our reality. So we are moving with it, and we're just gonna see what happens. Now, if you're following along, you know that I told my husband no more animals until we can get more infrastructure set up. Well, there is another animal coming soon. I am such an enabler. I know, like, I'm shaking my finger at him, but then he's like, but look at this one. And I'll look at it and be like, no, except it is really cute and it's a good idea. Actually, that is a good idea. You know what, husband? You're right. So maybe we're just feeding off of each other with this whole animal thing. It's turning into a little bit of a problem. So the shed that we are working on building is going to be, like I said before, a multi-purpose kind of building. It's going to be a very temporary spot to shower in. It's going to have spot for storage for tools, and the overhang on one side is hopefully going to be for storing hay over the winter. And then on the other side of the shed, it's going to have a lamb enclosure, so that, like, / birthing stall, so that our sheep can go out of the weather and cuddle up. All of these projects are so fun to plan and to see them slowly come to fruition. So if you are looking for acreage, don't think that you need to have 50 acres or 20 acres, especially with the property prices now. Land has skyrocketed. So do your best. Hopefully you get more than just an acre, but if you have just an acre, you can do so many amazing things. Get creative with it. Don't be discouraged.